your Miami Hurricanes. We got a little stat line for transfers in and transfers out. Colorado leads that number, but I made a bigger point. I wanted to make it a bigger point to you. Like, I get the numbers and all that, but this is astonishing to me because Michigan State, I know it's a new head coach. Alabama, new head coach. Louisville, second-year guy. Mario, third, entering three?
Entering three.
Arkansas, I mean, they kept him, and I don't get it. Cincinnati, Willie Fritz at Houston, first-year guy. USC on there. I can't give that pass to Lincoln Riley. He's been there and established that place already. And this is a telltale sign for the college landscape. It's a way bigger thing than just Colorado and just anybody else. I don't see how you can really have success, Steve, in this landscape and build men anymore. We know that's not happening. But transfers in and transfers out, it's not just one school. It's everybody. The entire thing. And it just doesn't sit well with me. I don't get it.
Well, Coach, to be fair, Lincoln Riley's also, I think, entering year 3 at USC. So, him and Cristobal got their jobs at the same offseason. It's interesting about Miami. I asked somebody who I consider an insider. He is a source. He played there. He's very connected. I would say he's pretty influential. And I asked him, I go, are we always just going to hit the portal? Is this what he said, no, basically, Mario wants to expedite the rebuilding process like everybody else. The days of Butch Davis having to do it 5 years, I'm just going with the high school recruiting and some JUCO are over. You can now basically speed up the process by at least a year or two. And I said, well, let me ask you something. Does Mario still believe in building a roster that is still basically homegrown high school talent? He said, yes. And I said, what do you think, about 80%? He says, no, more than that. He says he wants to, if this program ever gets running the way he wants, the days of him having to get 10 players, 15 players in an offseason would be over. We're talking about a couple of players here and there to fill a roster spot. But I think it's been unfair to just point out Dion as like what is wrong or a symbol of the transfer portal. It really is, because everybody is doing it. And here's the thing, though, Coach. The players are actually initiating just as much of it as the coaches.
That's my point.
I look, so I don't know what you can do. Like, let me just tell you a story. Nowadays, when a team goes through a coaching change, I guarantee you at least half that roster of that team is on the phone, and they're thinking, hey, where do I go? What can I do? What's my NIL package? They start making phone calls. So they, in essence, become free agents. I remember who did I tell this? Who told me this story? It's Claude Jones, who has 3 national title rings at Miami, and then Roland Smith. He's a cornerback at Miami. He has 2 national title rings, and he's now actually working in the program at Miami. Patty, I interviewed them both years ago, and I asked them about the transition from Jimmy Johnson to Erickson, and they both told me when Jimmy Johnson came in the weight room to say, hey, guys, I love you guys, but I'm off to Dallas, just beat Notre Dame, and he walks out the door, that instead of everyone saying, oh, my God, we're all going to transfer, no. A couple of the team leaders led by Bernard Tiger Clark, he was the middle linebacker. He basically closed the door, and he said, okay, we love Jimmy. He's gone, but we have a national championship caliber team here. I'm going to say this right now. Whoever wants to transfer, get the out right now. I'm not hearing this shit. So if you're going to stay, you get 10 minutes to make up your mind. Now, if you're going to stay here, we're going to be okay. That's the way it was. I think those days are over.
And Steve,
I hate to say it. It's over.
Yesterday, I did a little rant with Smitty about this exact take you just made. This ain't a Dion thing. This ain't anybody's thing. It is a landscape problem. And I said to Smitty yesterday, Steve, if you define the word recruitment and recruiter, the number one thing that sticks out to me that we lack is retention and retaining players. If you're such a great recruiter, you should not be losing 35 kids at Alabama. I'm just going to be honest. Nobody
Coach,
should lose
I'm
that
with you. Coach, I actually think this is an easy out for coaches when they make evaluation errors. And there was a part of me as Miami was going through the portal. I said, well, hold on, Mario, do you trust yourself or not? These are some of your players. And I get it. Some of these were Manny Diaz holdovers. And I'll be honest with you, out of all the players Miami's lost, there's only been a couple of kids that I would say, oh, that's a tough one. Elijah Roberts, defensive lineman, had a really good year at SMU. He would have been a good rotational player. And Colby Young, who's going to have a really good year catching passes from Carson Beck at Georgia. Those are the two guys out of all of them that I said, man, those guys could have helped us or are going to help us. But here's the other issue. I mean, Miami picked up a kid from Michigan State named Simeon Barrow. Big body. He's going to be a rotational piece on the front line. Miami needed a war daddy up front. Here's a guy that says, I'm announcing I'm going to Miami. He gets on campus. He starts working out. Then 2 weeks ago, there were reports he's leaving Miami. Well, wait a minute. You're transferring out of the transfer portal to a school that you just got to go to another school. I actually wish Miami had the leverage to say, well, get the hell out of here. But here's the problem. We lost other players at that position, like Harrison Hunt, who I thought developed into a good, solid backup type of piece. So now you have to make amends, even if this kid, I don't want to say use the word holding hostage, but has a little bit of leverage over you. That's what college football is nowadays.
Yeah, I just like you're talking about a place like Alabama. Listen, I don't even want to talk about the current landscape and the current coaches because we know this is just a free-for-all now. It's a wild, wild west. But I still want to talk about the actual college. Miami, a blue blood. Alabama, a blue blood. USC. When you think of these schools, though, you think guys should want to stay at these institutions regardless of who's there. Steve, we used to go through this, Steve. We lost a coach, but guess what? The band of brothers got together and were like, man, fuck, this is our school. We're gonna win with who's the new coach, whatever. Nowadays, it's like coach leaves, 30 guys enter the portal regardless of who's coming in, and then they sit there and say, hey, we're gonna wait and see who we hire. But you're in this limbo status.
And look, I remember Pat Narduzzi got into some trouble because he said, look, unlike I think things were taken out of context, or I hope they were. Pat Narduzzi got hammered for supposedly ripping Dion when he said, look, I'm of the nature that if I take over a team, I want to coach those kids up. I'm not running kids off. I'm not going to use the portal as much as Dion. I want to coach those kids up. But here's the issue, though, and I tell this to kids all the time, and I know people didn't like it when I get on these spaces, and I would tell everybody, look, if you're going to be a guy that's just good enough to play college football and you don't make the National Football League, you have still made it farther than 98% of the people that ever played the game. And if you walk away with the serviceable degree, you've made it in life. You did the right thing. But a lot of kids, I don't know if they're just being relegated to being a backup or they're happy with it. Look, the Claude Jones, the guy that I mentioned, right? He did not play till about his fourth year in the program. He had the red shirt, okay? And he's a doctor now, a very successful doctor. And I'll never forget a funny story that he told me about how cutthroat college football is. When Jimmy Johnson recruited him, he was at his house, and he's looking through the media guide for the depth chart. And Jimmy goes, now, Claude, what are you doing? And he goes, well, Coach, I'm looking at the depth chart of the offensive line. He goes, Claude, I'm going to tell you right now, it doesn't matter about who's here, because if you don't compete, we're just going to send you back anyway. So fast forward, his redshirt freshman year, he has a knee injury. So he's in the training room getting treatment, and Jimmy's coming through, checking up on the starters, taking up blood. And Claude, as a redshirt freshman, tries to say hi to Jimmy. Jimmy just looks at him and says, Claude, I don't talk to injured players. And he just walked out. It's a business. You better understand this is a cutthroat thing here. But he graduated with a degree. He's making a good living. He got some memories. And I'll never forget. So 2 years ago, I'm reading Jimmy Johnson's latest book, Swagger. And it's funny because Claude was not a star player, never played in the NFL. Jimmy actually mentioned him 2 times in the book as, hey, we produced this at Miami. We produce grown men that are helping society. It's not just football. I was blown away that he even remembered Claude because he left Claude after his third year. He went to Dallas.
We remember everything. Here's the thing. It's welcome in, Shaun. Here's the thing I got to say about it because we got Dion. We call him Prime.
Coach Prime.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm saying we got these prime sexuals in the chat, and these prime sexuals like Fat Still and all this. He's not smart enough. Fat Still's not a very smart guy. But having said that, he's not smart enough to grasp the fact that he thinks that Deion stole players from Pat Narduzzi. How about if I told you Pat Narduzzi got rid of those motherfuckers? See, this is the thing we don't understand. You're not getting new players. You're getting recycled players from everyone else. They all left somewhere. Like, it makes no sense. Guess what? Colorado's players that left, guess where they went? To another D1. Like, it's robbing Peter to pay Paul, Shaun, and Steve.
JB, I got two things for you. First of all, Steve Kim, super intelligent, high sports IQ. Never talk to him about the Hurricanes. He's got these Miami goggles on, and they just skew his view of reality. Listen, Cristobal has led the damn college football in transfers, and then you're going to believe that he's going to all of a sudden switch and grow it from homegrown high school talent? It's not going to happen. Having said that, the transfer portal is just like recruiting. You're going to have the teams that are really good at it, that are efficient, that do their due diligence, that go out and find guys that can really come in and contribute. Then you're going to have other programs that just go based on where a kid was ranked in high school. We've got a void, so he has the measurables. We're going to add him to the mix. And I think it's going to make the gap wider than it was with high school recruiting. Because at least in high school recruiting, you had a cap on how many players you could bring in. So Georgia and Alabama could only take so many of the best of the best. This transfer thing, it's the Wild Wild West. We'll see. I just think they're going to be programs.
But really Shaun, before Steve says, isn't recruiting the definition? You coach at South Florida. You were there. You got to, when you take a new program.
Recruiter of the year too, JB.
Recruiter of the year. When you take a new job, though, Shaun, tell me if I'm wrong, because I think I've done this long enough. Retention should be number one job for a recruiter. I'm going to go through my fine-tooth comb my roster, and I understand we're going to create a culture. But in that culture, we're not trying to get rid of everybody. We're going to try to see if we can build some men and have them buy into our culture. And then the guys that don't, we get rid of them, Shaun. You're a cancer. Get out of here. And then we'll bring in new. But we're getting rid of everybody.
And I love to hear you guys' opinion on this. And this is for new coaches. If there's one glaring mistake that I think a lot of them make, is that there are no capable football players already here.
Right.
If you ask me one mistake that I thought Deion made, there probably were some guys that could have been starters, or if not starters, legit backups for Deion in his first couple years there at Colorado while he took his time. And I'm just using him because he's high profile. Everybody's familiar with it, but this messaging goes across the board. How can I get rid of a room of guys before I really know what's in there? Some of those guys maybe just weren't getting coached at the highest level. Some of them may have been mentally just completely torn away for losing. Let's say I went to I had a Smitty who was backing up some guys that coach was playing favorites in the room. And I just tell Smitty, hey man, you couldn't start for this group, man. Get the hell out of town. I might be getting rid of a guy that can actually contribute and help me that's already bought into the program. So the only thing I would say with these new coaches, I would exhibit a little more patience. I wouldn't be so quick to make all these decisions pre-spring. I give that current group a chance to go through MAC drills, go through spring football, a semester in our weight program, and see if maybe we got some guys who can actually really play that just weren't reaching their potential previously.
And Steve, are we lacking building a program, especially with depth, when you get rid of 40 guys?
But, Coach, here's the other issue. I don't know how many kids now, because there's such a pressure to make the league. And then there's the NIL dynamic. Right. I don't know how many kids are willing to wait 3 to 4 years to become that starter. I really don't. I hear rumors all the time of a high 4 or 5 star that if they're not playing by conference play or their true freshman year, you always hear rumblings. Oh, this kid's a little unhappy. Over what? He just moved into his dorm room.
And you know what? I think it goes back to leadership. I think it goes back to messaging. I think it falls on trust. What did you tell said player to get him there? Did you tell him he was going to play early? Sit in the living room with the parents and say, listen, we think Smitty's a hell of a player right now. We got some guys that are damn near NFL caliber. If you trust us with Smitty, it might not happen in year 1, but we promise you, by the time he leaves here, he'll be the best version of him. We're going to ask for patience, just like you guys asked us for trust. If that's your message from the beginning, that kid is more likely to be willing to stay. But if you tell Smitty, listen, if you sign here at Oklahoma, you're going to start day 1.
Yeah, right.
When you get there and he's third on the depth chart, and he's going to be walking around with the pouty face.
Shaun, I talked to someone in the Miami room last year that was in the building, and they said, Steve, nowadays you bring up that word red shirt, you're out of the running. All these parents, and oftentimes the parent is the problem. They want their little child to be their lottery ticket, and they're on a 3-year plan. I think it's a very, very short-sighted, almost destructive mindset. Okay, and so a lot of this is cultural. That these kids are not in this for 5 years to get a degree and do everything else, including football. They're saying, oh, in 3 years, I'm going to be posing with Roger Goodell. So you can't, I don't know how many times you can actually have that very honest discussion like, hey, kid, you need about 25 pounds of good weight on you. That means you're going to redshirt. That means this kid's already saying, well, this school's out. Honestly.
And the only reason I differ with you right here, because I think, first of all, you weed out those families in recruiting anyway. I mean, there are enough.
Isn't that most of them, though?
Yeah, but no, not really. And then I think it's not content all the time, it's presentation. If you're recruiting a defensive lineman or a big-bodied athlete to Miami, part of my recruitment is, listen, this is what we think your son projects as, but never forget, Warren Sapp came here as a tight end. And we found out through trust on our end, discipline, accountability, and development that he was a Hall of Fame 3 technique. Now, I say, during this journey with your child, listen, you got to trust us. This is not going to be overnight success. Do you want us to babysit a kid, or do you want us to develop a young man? And you got to be, that messaging's got to be in your recruitment from the beginning. And listen, the people and the families that don't want to come, okay, you dodging bullets because they weren't going to stay anyway. But the ones that buy into that messaging, listen, I'm telling you, you got somebody that's going to rock with you.